Welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time tuning in, I actually do 3 things to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll also ask you to hit the notification bell so you're notified every time I upload a video. The reason why I ask to like, comment, and subscribe is because the more you interact with this video, the more YouTube will promote this video, and this will help us get the gospel of Jesus Christ worldwide. Happy Tuesday. I have a couple of questions to ask you. My first question is, how many of us are in a difficult season right now? My second question is, how many of us find it hard to obey God? And my third question is, how many of us believe that obedience always have to make sense? Let me submit to you, obedience doesn't always have to make sense. Stop trying to fit God into your logic. God is above your logic. God is above your reasoning. God is above your thoughts. Isaiah chapter 55, verse 8 to 9 says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts higher than your thoughts." God knows the end from the beginning, so you can trust his instructions. But what happens is we try to get approval from our family, we try to get approval from our friends before we even make a move. But the same people you tell the instruction to are the same people that will take you out of your blessing. Let me tell you right now, your blessing is tied into your obedience. I said that one more time, your blessing is tied in to your obedience. Stop expecting blessings when you never started obedience. I'll say that one more time. Stop expecting blessings when you never started obedience. Obedience does not demonstrate your logic. It demonstrates your love for Jesus. John chapter 14, verse 15 says, "If you love me, obey my commandments." Jesus never said, "If you love me, hear my commandments, tell your friends about my commandments, make it make sense, weigh the pros and the cons, and then maybe obey my commandments." He said, "If you love me, obey my commandments." Obedience doesn't always make sense, but it does not have to make sense for you to obey God. 1 Kings chapter 17 verse 7 to 9 says, "Sometime later the brook dried up because there had been no rain in the land. Then the word of the Lord came to him." Who's him? Elijah. Verse 9 says, "Go at once to Zarephath in the region of Sidon and stay there. I have directed a widow there to supply you with food." Let's pause right here. Where is Elijah at? At this moment, he's in obedience because God told him to be at the place he's at. If we go back to 1 Kings chapter 17, verse 2 to 6, it says, "Then the word of the Lord came to Elijah, leave here, turn eastward, and hide in the Kerith ravine, east of Jordan. You will drink from that brook, and I have directed the ravens to supply you with food there." So he did what the Lord had told him. He went to the Kerith ravine, east of the Jordan, and stayed there. The ravens brought him bread and meat in the morning, and bread and meat in the evening, and he drank from the brook. But in verse 9, look what happens. God told Elijah to leave one place of obedience and go to the next place of obedience. And to make sure that Elijah would not be tempted, God allowed the brook that was providing Elijah with water to go dry. How many of us are still in the first place of obedience, even though God has called us to the next level of obedience? We've gotten so comfortable in this level of obedience that when God has called us to the next level of obedience, we opted not to go. And now we're frustrated because God has dried up all the resources at our last season of obedience. But let me tell you right now, the resources is not attached to a place, it's not attached to a person, it's not attached to an idea. The resources, the favor, the blessing is attached to your obedience. Don't deny yourself of God's favor because you're not willing to leave your previous season of obedience and embark on the new season of obedience God has for you. Let's continue with 1 Kings chapter 17, verse 10 to 16 says, "So he went to Zarephath. When he came to the town gate, a widow was there gathering sticks. He called to her and asked, 'Would you bring me a little water in a jar so I may have a drink?' As she was going to get it, he called, 'And bring me, please, a piece of bread.' 'As surely the Lord your God lives,' she replied, 'I don't have any bread, only a handful of flour in a jar and a little olive oil in a jug. I am gathering a few sticks to take home and make a meal for myself and my son, that we may eat it and die.' Elijah said to her, 'Don't be afraid. Let me tell you right now, don't be afraid. I don't know what your situation looks like. I don't care how your situation looks like. Don't be afraid. Don't you give up. Don't you throw in the towel, because God is fighting for you. Let's continue. Elijah said to her, don't be afraid. Go home. Do as you have said, but first make me a small loaf of bread for me from what you have, and bring it to me, and then something for yourself and your son. For this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, say: the jar of flour will not be used up, and the jug of oil will not run dry until the day the Lord sends rain on the land. She went away and did as Elijah told her. So there was food every day for Elijah and for the woman and her family. For the jar of flour was not used up, the jug of oil did not run dry, in keeping with the word of the Lord spoken by Elijah. It did not make sense for the widow to obey Elijah and give him her last resources. But obedience does not have to make sense for it to work. I said that one more time. Obedience does not have to make sense for it to work. Lack is not a reason why you shouldn't obey, because God will only ask you for something he has already given you. God will not ask you to sow $1 million when you don't have $1 million. He will never ask you to give away a car when you don't have a car. He will never tell you to give something you don't have. He will always tell you to give something that he has already given to you. This widow only had a little flour and a little oil left, and she obeyed God, and through her obedience, miracles occurred, provision occurred, multiplication occurred. Why? Because she decided to obey God. Could you imagine if she didn't obey God? Her and her family would have died. Please don't miss out on your miracles because you are not willing to obey God and give your last a bit. Whatever it represents in your life, don't hold on to it while your miracles are passing you by. Obedience does not have to make sense for it to produce fruit. 1 Kings chapter 17, verse 17 says, sometime later, the son of the woman who owned the house became ill. He grew worse and worse and finally stopped breathing. Wait, so you're trying to tell me after she obeyed, her son still died? Some of y'all probably saying to yourself, that's why I don't obey. I don't want more stuff to be taken away from me. But my question is, are you willing to obey God no matter what? Even if the doctor's report doesn't get better, are you willing to obey? Even if your finances doesn't get better, are you willing to obey? Even if your family life does not get better, are you willing to obey? Obedience transcends all feelings. Some of y'all are saying, I will obey when I feel like it. What if you never feel like it? You have to go past your feelings. You have to lean on your faith and obey God no matter what. 1 Kings chapter 17, verse 18 and 24 says, she said to Elijah, what did you have against me, man of God? Did you come to remind me of my sin and kill my son? Give me your son, Elijah replied. He took him from her arms, carried him to the upper room where he was staying, and laid him on his bed. Then he cried out to the Lord, Lord my God, have you brought tragedy even on this widow I am staying with by causing her son to die? Then he stretched himself out on the board 3 times and cried out to the Lord, Lord my God, let this boy's life return to him. The Lord heard Elijah's cry, and the boy's life returned to him, and he lived. Elijah picked up the child, carried him down from the room into the house. He gave him to his mother and said, look, your son is alive. Then the woman said to Elijah, now I know that you are a man of God and that the word of the Lord from your mouth is the truth. Now she knew Elijah was a man of God. What about when the flour didn't run out? What about when the oil didn't run out? But now she knows that he's a man of God. I wonder if she got complacent with the miracle she had in her life. Sometimes when you get in a miracle, you start to forget about the miracles of God and you start to take the miracles in your life for granted. Please do not take the miracles of God in your life for granted. As I look at this encounter from the very beginning, it was obedience that brought the boy back to life. It was Elijah's obedience to leave his former season of obedience. It was the widow's obedience to give all she had to Elijah. Elijah left his comfort zone. The widow left her certainty to obey. But because of their obedience, the boy was brought back to life. Your obedience can lead to you breaking generational curses. Your obedience can lead to you establishing generational wealth. Your obedience can lead to you having a whole marriage. Your obedience can lead to you having peace that surpasses all man's understanding. Your obedience can lead to you changing the world for the glory of Jesus. But you would never know unless you forsake your logic and obey God no matter what. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. I'll upload every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. And I don't want you to miss out any of the content coming from this channel. If you have any prayer requests, put in the comment section below. If you feel led to support this ministry, the giving information is in the description box below. I love you. God bless you. And I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching this video. If you want more content, subscribe over here and watch the next video over there. God bless you.